Welcome back to Control Alt Dev, the podcast for business owners, tech lovers, and anyone trying to keep up with AI and, of course, automation.
Yeah, and today we're talking about smart operations, digital teams with our guest, Tina Cook from ZappingAI.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited for this chat. AI is my favourite thing to talk about. There's so much noise out there, so much jargon. So today's about making it clear, practical, and easy to understand.
Excellent. And for anyone who's not met you, Tina, who are you and what exactly does ZappingAI do?
So what we do, we make everything clear. We show how the work really moves across their tools and their systems in their business. So what we do, we connect everything up, we make it all clean, and we show them how the work moves. So we work with businesses from office-based teams right through to construction, manufacturing, finance and property. And what I found, even though that's a broad range of industries, it's different industries, but same headache. So the work moves, the tools and the systems do not. So the information ends up everywhere and nothing talks to each other. So ZappingAI comes in, we connect the tools, we clean up how the work moves, and then we use AI and digital agents to take the weight off the team.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So it's cutting out the boring parts of work, which of course we all want to do. So what made you realise most business problems are workflow problems, not AI problems?
Okay, so it clicked when I ran my own business. So I used to run an affiliates business. I had 300 different websites, had 300 different dashboards, logins. So every day I was meant to check the sales, I was meant to check the trends. And like any other business owner, you were spinning so many plates. Some days I checked and some days I didn't. And to be honest, I mean, I didn't even know where my sales were coming from, which is embarrassing, but to admit, it's completely normal. And then I added AI and it was a complete game changer. I could finally see everything clearly. It pulled in all the data, it cleaned it all up, it organized it, sent me the insights automatically. And then suddenly I could spot trends, I could run marketing campaigns, and I could actually make decisions. And the funny thing about all of this, I wasn't trying to be clever. I was just trying to survive all the admin. And when I saw how AI handled all the data with zero stress, zero delay, I thought, this is the future. There was no flashy tools, just practical support that frees you to think. And that's when I clicked. AI is powerful when the automation flow underneath is clear.
Wow. So why do you think like small and medium-sized businesses are losing so many hours without realizing? Because I think that's the biggest thing, is getting people to realize that there's an alternative way, isn't there?
Absolutely, because when working with businesses, what I found, time disappears in tiny places. So it's sort of 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here. And that's massive when you're sort of a small company. So you're checking something, repeating something, fixing something. One person I work with think that just lost 20 minutes, and 20 minutes across a whole team, it turns into delay. So it's 20 minutes against a team of 10. It all adds up. We work with a company in the Midlands. They're a great team, fabricators, and they thought things were fine. And when we measured it properly, we spoke to them, ran through everything. They were losing nearly 30 hours a week in tiny repetitive actions. Everyone was very efficient. No one was doing anything wrong. It's just how they'd always done things. And the way they worked, it just leaked time everywhere.
Well, so if you do it manually twice, Zapping AI can probably automate it. It's probably your philosophy there, isn't it? But what are the signs? So what are the signs a business has hit an operational ceiling?
Okay, there's a few ways of looking at this. For me, I think when customers are waiting longer, simple tasks are starting to feel harder, they drain your time. And things only work when one specific person is in. So if someone's not in business, everything kind of falls apart. And the biggest one that I found is that your best person in your team in a small business is forever playing catch up. They're wasted. And I saw this with a construction supplier that we were working with. Their operations lead was incredible. She was driven, she was focused, she was organized. She cared so much about the business, but she spent half a day hunting through emails, through messages, her folders, her PDFs, her photos, not because of her, but because the tools and systems around her just slowed her down.
Yeah, and I think I always love getting stats wrong, but I think there's also the classic thing of how long it takes you to regain focus as well, isn't it? After interruptions and being reactive to work. So yeah,
Absolutely.
the almost the ability to time the data, the minutes lost. And then there's the focus time. And I'm sure it's something like it takes 15 minutes to get back into any task, even if it's only a 5-minute task that you're trying to complete. If you're interrupted, I think that's huge. So Yeah, what why so if we know the problem is time and repetitive tasks, then why does AI feel to some so overwhelming right now, do you think?
I think with so much information out there and it changes so fast, the word AI is just loud. The whole world is loud. Every day it keeps changing. There's new versions, there's new tools, there's new updates every week. I mean, only recently ChatGPT had updates, Claude had updates, Grok had updates, and then Gemini came and outperformed everybody, which by the way is really impressive. If you haven't had a chance, go and look at the new Gemini updates. But give it a month or so, all the others will catch up. It's like a game of cat and mouse. It's who can overtake. And I think with business owners, they're stuck thinking, where do I start? Where do I pick up? Who do I ignore? Who is the best? How do I strip all that noise away? And this is where I wanted to come in. There's no jargon, no hype. Don't worry about all of that because that's my job. And I just love helping people feel calm around AI because it's brilliant when you use it properly. It should feel exciting, not overwhelming. People message me saying they feel behind, and I always say the same thing: you're not behind. You just need to find that right entry point. So then I sit down with the businesses and I just ask simple questions like, where do you lose your most time? Where do your systems not talk to each other? Where do things get repeated? And more importantly, where are you wasting most of your money? And honestly, we shouldn't be downloading data anymore. AI should gather it, organize it, and present it to us when we need it.
Yeah, I love that too. And I'm going to go a little bit off piece here, so apologies for this, Tina. But you mentioned 4 different AI agents there. Paul and I were saying last week on the podcast, pick one particular tool. Don't sort of go for every single one and try them all out. You seem to know a bit about Gemini. I mean, can I be a bit unfair here and sort of say which one would you choose for your customer? Because you've got Gemini, as you say, you've got Claude, you've got ChatGPT. I mean, do you have a preference?
I think I do have a preference, but it depends what it's the job for. So I think you have Claude. So ChatGPT is really good for thinking. You have Claude and Grok, which are really good for coding. You have different tools. So different AIs do different jobs. So I wouldn't say just use one for a certain job because I think in my opinion, certain AIs are good for certain roles and certain jobs.
Brilliant. That's excellent. So explain your workflow diagnostic in simple language to the listeners.
Okay, so first of all, we track how the work moves across their systems and their tools, where it enters, who touches it, which departments, where does it slow down, where do things get repeated. And we also look where all the mistakes appear. So we take all that information, and a lot of businesses don't see all this happening. So then we really open their eyes up to what's actually going on. Then we take all of that and then we find the real bottlenecks and we sit down with them and say, the tasks that drain everyone, the ones that take far too long, and the ones that nobody wants to do. And we put it all in one page. And then when you have it in black and white, it all becomes obvious where all the problems are.
Yeah, and I guess once they can see, like you say, all the problems laid out in a simple format, it's like, how do you then help them justify the investment?
This is where it gets really exciting. I've got a fabulous calculator on my website. So you can punch in your real numbers. So you can punch in your time, your cost, the errors, the cost of those errors, and it shows you the real cost of your time that you're actually wasting. Most people realize very quickly they have been losing far more than what they thought. And it gets even better. So when someone actually sees the real cost for the first time, they face the whole changes and they realize that the budget is already there, hidden in all that wasted time.
So it's a bit like having a mechanical check with your car. Instead of obviously your car here, we're looking at emails, or you are, Tina, emails, admin, sales process, customer journey, and everyday tasks. So I really want the listeners to look at your calculator. So what we'll do, listeners, at the end of the show notes, we'll actually drop in the URL to the ZappingAI calculator. So what does simplifying a workflow look like then, Tina?
Okay, so it's really important we make everything make sense. So we remove the steps that add nothing. There's a lot of processes that are being duplicated. So we take those steps out. We make sure the information is only entered in once. The biggest thing is that we make sure the tools and systems are talking to each other. If they're not talking to each other, they're all disconnected and nothing will flow. So it's really, really important we get the flow clean first and then we automate because you can't automate chaos. You just make it worse.
Yeah, I love it. And I think what's really useful for the listeners now is like, if you got like really messy example of a workflow that you fix something like tangible that they can like lean into and understand this in the real world scenario?
Absolutely. So we worked with a project manager in a building company. He was so busy. So his world is documents, certificates, compliance, site photos, updates, handovers. Everything in his world arrived in different formats. It was crazy to see. So his emails, it was WhatsApps, photos, shared drives. Great. It was so great to work with. He was really patient. But then he started to become frustrated with all the different formats, and rightly so. He became completely buried because his company grew so quick. But it was always a process that they'd always done, and it's hard to change sometimes. And as his company started growing so quickly, he was spending 2 days a week just chasing, searching, waiting, checking, and updating. So we sat down and we cleaned up his workflow, we connected his systems, added AI, and now the AI reads his documents, it extracts the key details and puts everything into the right data fields automatically. So that 2-day job that he used to spend a week doing became 20 minutes, and he finally had time to actually do his job, which was run the projects. It sounds so simple because that's his job that he should be doing, but it's amazing how much time people waste not actually doing their job. I was really proud of that project. He still messages me now saying, "How did he manage before with that AI?" And that's when I know my job's done.
Yeah, brilliant. So you're choosing the most easiest, most repetitive, most time wasting task. Is that what you kind of look at first when you analyze what the business is doing? So it's not necessarily looking at the complicated workflow. It may be the most repetitive. Is that what you do? The time wasting one, is that what you do first?
Absolutely. So when I speak to businesses, the first thing I want to do is see the one workflow that will give the biggest impact, the biggest lift. And then that one thing will make everyone breathe when it disappears. So something that saves the time, it reduces change chasing, and makes the whole week feel lighter. I know it sounds really cheesy, but one thing I always ask to business owners is, if I could wave a magic wand and remove one thing from your week, what would it be? And that question kind of like gets them thinking, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't. Okay." And it's amazing what they come back with, and that magic of that question cuts through everything. And people they stop thinking about tools, and they actually stop thinking about what relief it could give them, and that's the first perfect win.
Yeah, I love that question, the magic wand question. So there's instant value there for the listener, isn't there? Because that's a really good reflective question anybody can ask in their business on a daily basis. And I like the fact that you're getting people to not think about the tools. Like, we've always talked about AI as the hammer, and it's how you use that hammer gives you very, very different results. So I love the fact that you're looking at the processes. So yeah, I mean, do you have another example, where automation has made life easier?
Yeah, we worked with a building services engineering team. They were flat out. So they're always on site. They're going from different sites. They was driving around. And one thing they had to do, they had to update into tablets or phones, had to fill out certain information, certain data fields. And when you're outside, the last thing you want to do is get your tablet or phone out. And they physically just didn't have time to do this. So one of the process that we implemented, we moved everything to voice notes. They had to talk for sort of 30 seconds or so with all the information. And then AI extracts all the key points, turns that information from voice notes into clean, structured data. And it's really clever because AI can turn messy data into clean, structured data and puts it into their system. So from that, their job sheets were updated, tasks were created, invoice numbers were added, nothing was missed, no backlog and no chasing. And more importantly, the manager finally got consistent updates without chasing, and everything just worked seamlessly.
So taking that example there, Tina, on the building site, the speech to text automation, what are you using? Are you using something like Whisper for that?
That's right. Yeah, we use Whisper, we use OpenAI. So it goes back to the other question you asked me, which is the best system to use. So again, it just shows that you just can't use the same AI for everything. It is the right tool for the right job.
Brilliant. So how do AI and automation work together without complexity? There's a question for you.
Ah, I love this question. Okay, so automation moves the data, AI understands the data. Automation handles the predictable steps, AI handles the thinking. When the workflow underneath is clean, the two work beautifully together. And then this is my favorite part. This is when you can build what we call digital AI assistants, Agentic AI. So what they do, the digital document extractors, they can read 600-page legal documents and pull out exactly the information you need. You can have digital updaters that move information into the right systems without retyping a thing. We can have digital compliance assistants, so they can chase missing documents, check dates, and flag issues automatically. You can have digital reporting assistants, so they can take scattered information again and turn it into clean, instant summaries. And this is a great one for everybody out there. You can have digital meeting assistants, so they can watch a Zoom or Teams recording and pick out all the information points and turn it into proper notes, tasks, and the next steps that you need to do. And the beauty of this, they all work in the background. They're all reading, updating, filing, chasing, and keeping everything moving forward. So the future of these assistants is the most exciting part for me. So I think soon every business will have its own little digital workforce running quietly in the background 24/7. And the best thing for humans while these digital teams are working in the background 24/7, it frees us up for more time. And the more time that we can free up, we have more time to support our customers. We can solve problems, we can do better work, we can think ahead, and more importantly, we can actually look after our own well-being.
Yeah, and I think that the resounding thing I'm hearing is that it's what we've been saying, isn't it, Sean, for the past few episodes, but it's this massive productivity gain. And I think there's too much of this threat of AI that's talked about. There's obviously the unknown. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. But right here, right now, the opportunity is to have these huge productivity gains. And then everything you've talked about in your examples is about, well, why would you do that? So you can do your best work. So you can do the job you're actually employed to do, and not all the admin that gets in the way. So it's kind of like we've always talked about people should be working on the most high value tasks that they can. And everything you've described that you help companies with enables them to do that. And the value is in the fact that the person is doing the high value tasks. That's where the actual return on investment comes. So it's not just saving money on time, it's what you then produce as a result of you've got capacity to do the stuff that only a human can excel at. And I think that the examples you've given so far have been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I think it's but obviously you've mentioned working with, I'm assuming it's like SMEs. So like, why do you think small businesses do unlock such big gains, when they implement AI?
I think, well, because one broken process hurts them more. So when you fix even just a small process, the impact is huge. So, I mean, for years, it was only big companies who had access to this type of efficiency. Now smaller business and can have access to the same speed, the accuracy, the stability without needing those big budgets. And this is great because it actually levels the playing field completely. And honestly, they are my favorite businesses to work with. The relief when things start to flow is incredible, and you can see the impact straight away, and it's amazing to see. AI only used to be a corporate thing, and now smaller businesses get the same power without the big budget. So it gives smaller businesses the opportunity to scale and get to where they want to be. They can have the speed, the accuracy, the stability, less stress, and the wins are just massive.
I mean, I'm just thinking, like I always do, about potential referrals here. And I've got a friend of mine that's got a very, very large successful demolition remediation company. Paul and I have discussed this particular client already, but I'm just going back to those examples with the speech to text. I think we're gonna have to introduce that to him, Paul. I will mention it to him. But
Or introduce ZappingAI.
absolutely, yeah.
That's a better
That's
idea.
what you were going to say.
That's what I meant to say was introduce Tina.
And yeah, I guess based on the fact that the wins are massive, what mistakes do you see businesses make when they try to automate alone without kind of expert guidance?
I've seen this happen so many times. So they just jump straight into the tools, and there's so many tools to choose. What tool do you choose? Which AI do you choose? They build 5 or so automations that all do different things. Nothing connects, nothing talks. And I mentioned this earlier. You can't automate chaos. If the work underneath is messy, the automation just makes the mess move faster. Anyone can use AI. The real difference is whether your tools and systems actually talk to each other. When nothing connects, AI has nothing solid to run. Automation works beautifully when the foundation is clear. And this is a sad part because people try and do the automation themselves and it doesn't work. They have a negative view on AI, and it's just because they haven't got the right tools for the right job.
I think just to chip in there, the one recurring theme that just totally backs up in the conversations I have is often we're talking to businesses now where, like you say, they've gone it alone and they've created agents in whatever tool they're using, or they've created like Replit apps, but nothing launches. And so if you never launch it, there's no benefit. It doesn't matter how great the thing could be. So it's often that we'll talk to a company and they'll be showing us 3, 4, 5 Replit apps. And you actually say, well, how many have you launched or have got even into test within your team? And the answer's none. And it's exactly what you said. They're just jumping straight into tools. They're playing at it, which is, I think, an essential part of learning anything. But what you're describing is it's the thinking beforehand, isn't it? And I love your phrase, "You cannot automate chaos." I think that's genius. It's another thing to make a note of, sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's so important to get the right tools for the right job.
And I think it's also important to obviously sort of sit down, like you've mentioned, Tina. We know a prompt is just how you ask AI to do something, but why do prompts matter operationally?
Oh, I love talking about this. And I think a lot of people who I've met think prompts are just, it doesn't really matter what you put in. So prompts are instructions and they are so important. You need to get them right. So most people, unfortunately, use AI like it's Google or a search bar, a quick question, they get a quick answer. Which means if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And unfortunately, they're only getting 10% of what AI can really do. AI, it needs direction. It's intelligent. Tell it your goal, tell it the format, tell it the constraints and the steps. Otherwise, it just acts like a digital yes man, which is no use to any business. You need someone who's going to challenge your opinions, your views. And when your prompts are right, AI can honestly work as a valued team member. And that's when you see the big wins.
Yeah, I think, just to totally interject, funny story. Well, in my opinion, a funny story is we went to an awards dinner last night. We were driving home, and my wife was talking about how she'd used AI in that day. Like, so in the world of AI, I'm at one extreme going, it's the best thing ever. It's also the worst thing ever for my industry. And then she's like a total Luddite who hates AI. So she used it for something, and her complaint was the kind of single shot thing of like, I gave it a task, and what it came back with was rubbish. And it's like, and I knew that that was wrong. I knew that was wrong. And so we had this whole conversation about, she did have like a lengthy conversation with it, but she completely distrusts it. And she's like, I don't know why anybody would trust this. And then I just went back to that thing exactly that you said is, well, how did you start talking to it? What did you actually give it in terms of context and format and things like that, that I think most people in the industry know about the high value of, if you get the prompts right, everything else falls out, doesn't it? Everything else follows down. And I think when you talked earlier about people playing with tools, again, they're not thinking about the inputs. We had Peter Lowe on who was talking about the importance of like specs and like using a prompt engineer to create the specs, that then the specs aren't written for a human necessarily. They're written for the AI in the best possible way. And then the AI goes and builds the agent. So it's kind of like everything's coming full circle for me. Is like conversation in the car about chat's useless. It doesn't give me what I want. Is like, you have to go back to, well, what did you put in? So I'm going to say to my wife, Nikki, it's garbage in, garbage out. That was your experience with AI.
Absolutely. I mean, I think me and Sean spoke about this yesterday. I think, Sean, you said that you kind of use Replit, and I said I've used VO3. And if you don't put the prompts in properly, if they're not in so much detail, you end up burning through so many credits, and then people just come away and say, "Oh, this is rubbish." It's not. It's just it's intelligent. You need to direct it correctly.
Yeah, well, prompts matter because it's the quality of the instructions, and it's like what you were saying when you speak to these SMEs. You're getting out of them what are these repetitive, annoying tasks that they just constantly do daily before you do anything, isn't it? Because you've got to get everything down in a sense on paper before then you map out what you're going to automate. I think that's really
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. But just going back to the other topic that we spoke about, prompts. So when I use VO3, and I've got a few videos on my LinkedIn, those prompts aren't just a couple of sentences. They are reams and reams and reams and reams of text, so I can get the video that I actually want. So, I mean, if you just put a couple of sentences, you won't get the video I want. There's text on there. It looks blurry. It doesn't produce the video that you had the vision for.
So, Tina, what does it mean that Zapping AI is a partner, not a build and leave service?
Okay. So It means that we actually stay with the business until it actually works in real life. So we understand that workflows change, systems update, just like the apps on your phone. We handle all the teething problems, we refine things, we tidy everything up, and we make sure AI runs quietly in the background. We give a clean handover, we keep things updated, and we make sure that the team feels confident. It's not just building something, it's so important that we embed this into the business properly and it becomes part of how the business runs.
Yeah, and I think this is all, so exciting, really. So, where do you think all of this is heading? I'm really interested when I talk to people, especially in the industry. Like, what is the future of AI in small and medium-sized businesses?
Okay, so I mean, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I think that we're heading towards every business having its own digital workforce. So there's no, it's just not just tools, not just automation. I think that have little AI agentic teams that I spoke about earlier. They work 24/7. They never get tired. They handle all the repetitive work. And again, this just levels the playing field. So you don't need that corporate budget to run a slick operation anymore. You will see calmer teams. You will see cleaner operations, faster decisions. People will really focus on real conversations, the customer needs, and the meaningful work, the things that AI can't do, the things that robots can't do. You need that human touch for your customers. And the digital workforce carries the weight quietly in the background. And the speed of change is unbelievable. It just means that people will feel lighter and it means that the work will finally flow.
Yeah, exactly. So, what is the safest first step for a business that feels chaotic?
Pick one workflow. Just pick one thing that you think drains the most time. Pick one thing that you think drains your most resources, takes your best member of staff away, takes you away. Let's fix the basics. Let's connect the tools. Let's automate the part that makes sense. And if you want, try the calculator. It just gives you a different perspective on things. Or message me the word Zap on LinkedIn, and I can show you the fastest win without zero disruption. I work with businesses all the time, so I understand where they can get the biggest win and see the biggest impact on their business.
I mean, it's just fantastic, and I think a conversation that comes up a lot, just in the conversations we're having, is you know, so someone buys into the vision, someone buys into the future, and obviously they found you as a partner. Um, Often where we get a roadblock of a prospect is, how do they find that first thing to automate? And I know you've covered across pick one thing, but really, like, is there a trick or is there a hack for identifying it? How would you go about it if you're in front of a prospect?
Okay, well, this is a tough one, and there's so many that they could choose from. Remember, if something sits still, the money sits still. Speed is everything when you're a certain size company. So, I mean, one idea that you can look at, if anything arrives into your business and it sits in an inbox and waits for a human to move it, that could be we could look at that. They could think of a sales lead, a customer request, a legal document that needs attending to, a job update, or a supplier message. So sales especially, remember, if a lead sits still, money sits still, and then that customer has gone to another business, and then when that customer's gone to another business, they've probably been replied to a lot sooner, and they won't come back to your business. So we can turn all that clean, connected, automatic flow, and then everything just becomes easier. So if they're looking at which process to automate, look at where you're losing money. So sales, especially when a lead sits still, the money sits still. And then again, like I said, the customer just goes to another business.
Yeah, brilliant. So, before we wrap up, Tina, any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Oh, God, I've absolutely loved coming on your podcast and talking about AI. Hopefully, I've helped simplify AI for businesses. I know we've only just scratched the surface and we've got so much more to talk about. But again, thank you both for having me. And if you feel like your business is messy or heavy, you're not alone. It's every business hits that point. And the good news, it can be fixed faster than what you think. So it's not the business's job to work out which AI to use. One workflow, one bottleneck, one win. That's all it takes. And you can see the impact pretty much straight away.
Ah, it's brilliant. I think we'd echo that. We've absolutely loved you having on as well, Tina, and I think you've definitely done the job of simplifying it. I've learned a lot today. I really have. And if you know a business owner who feels that their whole business runs slower than it should, reach out to Tina. We'll put her company links and the calculator in the show notes. Share this episode with them. A great way to get to know Tina is to listen to her expertise, which has shone through today, and it might be the reset that they need. welcome to the news section of this podcast that we've introduced recently. I guess the biggest piece of news that has affected us dramatically this week is the Cloudflare had a massive outage affecting X, Canva, Royal Mail, ChatGPT even, and many more services. Were you affected, Sean?
Oh, we absolutely were, because we've got our software solution Inventory, which helps sellers download eBay, Amazon, TikTok, Shopify, all the orders go into our software, and then obviously then they can push out to Royal Mail, DHL, and it was Royal Mail that actually was using Cloudflare, so that really impacted them. So a bit of a disaster there, and we found out it triggered, I think, 500 errors across massive chunks of their global network. And because Cloudflare, as we know, Paul, it handles around 20% of the global web traffic.
Yeah, well, it handles everything, it appears.
Yeah.
Not 20%. That seems conservative to me. Looks like everything's running Cloudflare.
Yeah. And what was absolutely hilarious was that site uptime that we use to monitor the websites. So websites were all up because they're on our servers, but site uptime was down. The one tool that was designed to warn us decided to take a nap too.
We had a similar thing. We have in Discord alerts go off if there's downtime and stuff, and it was very quiet that day, and I was thinking, why is it so quiet? And I think the tool that we use for monitoring uses Cloudflare, so I was like, okay, it's not reporting, even though again their sites are up. So what else is in the news, Sean?
Yeah, so next up, Google's Gemini 3. This has been launched, and it makes headlines this week for its ability to handle ridiculously large and complex documents. I'm hearing like 700-page documents it can handle now.
Yeah, and I think it's Google's way of saying use us instead of ChatGPT, basically. I think one of the really interesting things that was on iPlayer this week is the BBC interview with the CEO of Google, and just talking about the current state of AI. A big part of it was energy, about the energy infrastructure needed in the UK, and trying to build the UK into an AI tech space, but it needs the infrastructure and the support of all the economic and environmental considerations. And I think also you talked about, don't have a blind trust in AI, and people who are using AI almost on a daily to drive their lives and not questioning anything anymore. It's almost like that scene from WALL-E, isn't it? Where WALL-E or whatever you call it, where there's just idiots floating around, basically, where robots are doing everything. So I think it's well worth checking out. There's a 30-minute version, the full extended interview, but there's like a 6-7 minute soundbite on there, and it was really worth watching.
Yeah, and it apparently can even prototype website UIs now, refactor entire code bases and analyze workflows like a digital consultant. So for those of you that have got Gemini, have a little play with it.
Yeah, and I think the next thing that's caught our eye is the NVIDIA continued dominating the hardware. So we've talked about the infrastructure, but yeah, the AI hardware race, where everyone depends on, the GPUs, like the general processing units, to do it. It uses such a massive amount of energy, and we're using it literally on our phones and everywhere. It's so accessible, but the energy requirement. I mean, I was thinking, Sean, we should probably touch on the energy aspect in another podcast, because it's phenomenal, the stats around it. So
NVIDIA, the shovel seller in the AI gold rush. Everyone needs GPUs, and NVIDIA keeps supplying the picks and the spades.
Yeah, and their valuation is skyrocketing. Like every model, as far as we're aware, like GPT, Gemini, Claude, Llama, they're all running on NVIDIA hardware somewhere.
Yeah, with the new Blackwell architecture rolling out, training costs could drop dramatically, and interference with speeds could increase several-fold.
Yeah, and I think if you want to understand the AI ecosystem, follow NVIDIA. Whoever buys the most GPUs wins the race.
Yeah, cloud providers like AWS, Google Cloud and Azure are scrambling to sign multi-billion GPU supply deals. The arms race is wild.
And these deals, they guarantee compute capacity for years, meaning AI companies won't run out of horsepower mid-boom. Might run out of electricity, though.
Yeah, and it means better tools for businesses, faster models, smarter assistants, and more automation built into everyday software. So that's the good news for everyone listening. Competition means better features, lower costs, and faster innovation.
Yeah, and thanks again to Tina for joining us earlier. Brilliant insights today. I think there's lots of value there for our listeners, and I know I've personally taken away a lot of insights.
Yes, I will also thank Tina as well for joining us both today. Brilliant insights on automation and how businesses can start freeing up time straight away. Quick recap on tech news. Obviously, Gemini 3 pushes the limits with massive document analysis. The Cloudflare outage taking out half the internet. So that's it from us. Thanks for listening to Control Alt Dev. Hit follow on Spotify or Apple. Drop us a load of questions if you want to, and we'll see you next Friday.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.